Okay, so trending up is the Seattle Mariners in the AL West, hovering around first place with the Texas Rangers. Man, it has been a massive turnaround. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week, but the starting pitching, like, let's get real. This has been the foundation. And to help me out, dive a little deeper with what's been happening with the starting pitching is the man who posted this at Codify Baseball. Is Seattle's rotation the best in baseball right now? 76.2% of people in this poll said yes, they are. And this is from a national audience. This is not the Northwest. Michael Fisher from at Codify Baseball. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. And I'm sorry that 24% of the people got that question wrong.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked now. I thought it'd be more in the 85%. And again, just to make sure people know this is not a Northwest. Usually there's a little bit of bias, obviously, here in the Northwest, but you have a huge following on social with everything you do. And if you're not following at Codify Baseball, you are missing out. And one thing you do so well is you work with pitchers, and I want to dive into that just a little bit in a second. But let's focus here on the Seattle Mariners rotation. What do you see from start to finish, from Luis Castillo, even down to Emerson Hancock, that they're doing so well?
Yeah, there's definitely an overall theme, and these guys are in the zone. They're not wasting pitches. They're not walking guys. MLB overall ratio of strikeouts to walks is under 3. It's 2.8. There's 2.8 strikeouts for every walk you see when you watch baseball. The Mariners pitching staff, the starters, are at 4.8, almost 5 strikeouts per walk. It's insane, and that's a lot of it. So then when they give up their hits, like, there's fewer guys on base.
You know, it's funny, man. I mean, look, with 16-game span, and this goes back to their last game in Toronto, to the last game in Arizona before the Braves came to town. But they had a 155 and 23 walks, 116 strikeouts. Opponents hitting 166. Now, you mentioned the strike throwing ability, and you know, this is something you work with some of the best pitchers in the game. It's all about stuff, right? Everyone, and we've seen this with some of the arm injuries going around baseball. Everyone gets so caught up in the 98 and the movement, the way guys can spin the baseball. But when you look at the Seattle Mariners and what you just mentioned, that strike throwing ability, I mean, it's kind of rare, right? When you look from start to finish, and you got 4 guys who are homegrown, by the way, who came up through the Mariners system. But it's kind of rare to have that strike throwing ability. It's something that, like, you talked about with Greg Maddux back in the mid-90s.
Yeah, you know, we were just looking at all of their pitches recently, and it's interesting. Stuff is the sexy thing. How much did your pitch break? It's like, but fine, Ryan, you have an 18-inch breaking sweeper, but can you throw it where you want to throw it?
Right.
Luis Castillo has that tight slider with not a lot of break, but imagine how hard it is to hit that when you're worried about these fastballs that are, you know, breaking a foot or a foot and a half the other way. So he can throw, and these guys in general, they know when they need to, much more so than most pitchers. They can throw these pitches where they want, and not just into the zone, but into a part of the zone.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And again, like, not taking anything away from you know, look, everyone, we need stuff, right? And swing and miss. I mean, I remember talking to someone who worked in player development with the Mariners. I remember having this conversation. He talked about, you know, I said, hey, look, if you got that one guy in AAA who, you know, has a 2, right, dominating, getting weak contact, but then you've got this guy in AA, this prospect, he's got a 6, but he's getting a lot of swing and miss. He goes, boom, swing and miss all day, and I'm like, all right. So it's kind of like that thing, and we've seen this a lot. Everyone talks about with the arm injuries and everything else. It's that incentivization in regards to watching guys just with straight stuff. Let's make that the priority, the way they develop. But like I said, the Mariners, look, you got 4 guys. And George Kirby, man, his last start on the weekend versus the D-backs, he just went to another level. Now, stuff-wise, he's still pumping 98, 99. But another tweet that you put up to, only 4 pitchers in MLB history have started more than 25 games during their career and had a strikeout-to-walk ratio of at least 5-1. And George Kirby, 7.62 to 1. It's crazy. Jacob deGrom right after him, and he's at around the 5s. So talk to me, man. Who do you see that's even close to having, who's pitching right now, and just talking about George Kirby, in regards to having the combination of stuff plus command?
Oh, come on. I mean, 62 career games started. The guy's walked 45 total batters. So no one No one has this combination. We were looking at the best pitches in baseball for starters of stuff. How much is it breaking? How fast is it going? And not looking so much at command. And Kirby's not on the radar. He can throw 98 or 99 when he needs to, but it's not. That's not why he's succeeding. He can dot it, and he does it over and over. There was one tweet I put up, which you might be able to put up, that showed here's all the pitches that George Kirby has thrown in his career with a 3-ball count, and they're all near the zone.
Right.
No one does that. That's insane.
I know, and here's the thing too. I think people don't understand too. And look, I've pitched, so when you get in a 3-ball count, obviously command-wise, you're not throwing the ball where you want to throw it, and you get to this place, and this is something I want to talk to you about here in just a second. But you get to this place where it's like, man, you're 2-0, and you're trying to make that adjustment with 10, 15 seconds in between pitches. And then if you get to a 3-ball count, the chances are you are not throwing the ball where you want to throw it. So therefore, the ball's going to spray, be all over the place. And I know actually, because I follow you very intently, I know the one you're talking about. It is insane, man. The fact that he has that thing about him where he can slip behind in the count and then get right back to where he wants to be and not in the middle of the plate. I think there's a difference there as well. When you talk about command or throwing strikes, people get caught up in is he in the strike zone? But George Kirby and some of these guys, but nothing like him, is that situation like, all right, I'm not going to go middle of the plate here. I'm behind in the count. I'm going to throw a strike. And he's still able to stay, basically black, close to edges too, when he slips behind in counts. I think too, look, you work with a lot of pitchers, and I'm sure you've talked to organizations as well. But I think I love this trend because it gives the incentive for people to develop strike throwers. You know what I mean? In regards, as opposed to, straight stuff. Now, one thing you do, and so people know that if they follow you on social media, they're not just following someone who dives into numbers. You actually you have, some stake in the game here because you're working with pitchers, right? So when you're working with those pitchers, it's more about, it's basically heat maps you provide them, right?
That's the foundation. Mm-hmm.
Right, and so the heat map is basically, all right, if you're throwing in this part of this part of the area that's a big fat blue, then you're going to have some success. So talk to me about that process. How is that something where you can talk to a player and basically get their confidence in regards to saying, all right, this is what I'm showing you, where you can gain that confidence, because it's not easy to get.
Right. Well, first of all, the maps have to be right. And I have a background in banking and big data analytics, and I turn that toward baseball. Like, let's make maps that are right. I can't bring these maps that are inferior or not as good or only as good as the teams and bring them to the guys and expect them to use them. They had to be better. They are better. The first group of guys that used them saw they were better. They used them. And, man, dude, if you can throw, as you know, when you're throwing pitches with conviction, you are a different pitcher. Absolutely. And that's a lot of what the Codify maps brought. Liam Hendricks, your buddy, and my buddy, that it completely changed his career. He was, he obviously a very talented guy, but as soon as he had this tool and he went, oh, that's where I get guys out, and just turned into a complete animal.
Hey, by the way, Liam Hendricks, he has been talking about singing your praises for years now. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Because it wasn't a situation where he felt like, I have to outsource. But just like you said, I think it's more of that, having that conviction, because especially to people think that, and I talked to a lot of former players in my generation, like, oh man, if I had all these analytics, I'd be way better off. But yeah, that's great. But if you don't trust those numbers, you're just going to get confused. Do you ever have a situation where there's certain guys where it's just too much information, or you're just giving them too much, or they're like, hey, look, I can't really digest this?
Yeah, a lot of guys only get one map for every pitch they throw against each batter. We don't do all the count-specific stuff, or what if you're trying to get a ground ball or whatever, because it's just too much. Yeah. The trouble usually comes when they're trying to mix it with something the team's giving, and it's hard to do when Codify says throw it there and the team says no, and you're like, now you have that seed of doubt. So you don't have to go all in, but at some point when you're ready to deliver the pitch, you better have that conviction that this is what to do. For
sure. And look, back to the Mariners. When you look at this rotation, 1 through 5, we've talked about the strike throwing ability. 76% of people said yes, they are the best rotation, and that again, national level. Who else in your mind, from in your opinion, is up there when it comes to 1 through 5 that has the ability to have they got stuff that plays at the big major league level, but also to the command and the productivity that we're seeing 1 through 5 with the Mariners.
Nobody. I'm doing a podcast with Pitching Ninja called Baseball Dojo, and on the very first episode, I think we had the task of independently saying who's going into this season, who has the best pitching staff, and independently, we both chose the Mariners for that reason of not just ability to work in the zone stuff, depth. I mean, Brian Wu is a good pitcher, and he goes down, and It's like, you're kidding me. You just slip in Emerson Hancock and keep going. I mean, they have the depth there too. They're number one. They're my number. They've been my number one the whole year. I've got some hate notes in the beginning when they struggled. Sorry, don't watch baseball that way. There's a lot of luck in baseball, and it can turn. And it's a big reason Codify Baseball exists. Liam Hendricks. I just threw a pitch. It was at the top of the zone. It was 99 miles an hour. It had good ride, and the guy hit it out of the park. Should I keep doing that? Yes, you should. Yes, right. It's called bad luck. It just happens. Where can you succeed more often? George Kirby had a kind of a rough outing there. Second one wasn't great. So, you're looking at a ZRA of 4. It's like, how good? Why are people bragging about George Kirby? Because he's a really good pitcher. Don't look at ERA.
Hey, you mentioned Brian Wu, and he's scheduled to. He's making a couple more starts, and then he's close to coming back. And first of all, Emerson Hancock. I mean, I've been in his situation where you're looking over your shoulder a ton, waiting for someone to come off the IL and take your spot, even though you're doing well. But Brian Wu, it was interesting. End of last year, there was a section last year where he really struggled against lefties, and he kind of lost his confidence with his changeup, and that was going to be kind of that safety net, if you would, with him to have a weapon against lefties. Because it's a trend too. Speaking of the Mariners, you've got Bryce Miller came up with that split. George Kirby again has a split, and when he's got that two-seamer that starts on the left, his hip and comes back in, man, he's so lethal. Obviously, Logan Gilbert, with what he's done, now throws the cut fastball. But with Brian Wu, at the end of last year, he was like 70% fastballs top of the strike zone, right? And so you're looking at that thinking, man, it's kind of rare. But with Brian Wu, what, in your opinion, watching him throw, and you can dive as deep as you want with this or stay on the surface, what does he need to do to take the next step once he comes back in 2024?
That's definitely a big thing. Is anytime you hear a pitcher lost confidence in something he wants to throw, that's not good. Right. The changeup is a different animal. You can throw your fastball all day into an area. Changeups are kind of naturally got a little bit more play. I mean, George Kirby doesn't throw his split where he's not hitting the same spot every time. It's going all over. Bryce Miller's, he's got 2 splits. They're all over the place, but it's effectively wild. But they have conviction when they throw it. Right. Brian Wu, when I watched him last year, I play a little game with myself if I have the opportunity to watch one pitcher for a period of time, is try to guess his next pitch. Don't cheat. It's nice with PitchCom. You don't get hints from the catcher anymore. Try to guess his next pitch. Yeah. Because if you can guess a pitcher's next pitch 60 or 70% of the time, the batter sure as heck can. And that turns them into better hitters. And, guys that can mix should probably, in general, mix more. A lot of guys that come to me, I'm like, dude, your third and fourth pitches are good. Mix them in and make your best pitch better.
Well, that's the other thing too. I'm looking at this guy, man. Like, can he survive? Let's say he stays, because his fastball's electric too. You talk about,
sure,
he's got that lower arm slot, really good approach angle, and he can pitch at the top of the strike zone. And again, conviction. He's been told it's good, so it kind of helps. But do you ever, when you're working with a pitcher, if you're breaking it down and saying, okay, you just mentioned one thing, you should mix more. Is there ever a time where it's like, hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Just, you know what, people might be telling you that you can't survive with throwing that higher percentage of any pitch, especially a fastball. Yes. Do you look at that and say, hey, and you're talking about trying to guess the next pitch and everything else. Do you look at that and say, hey, no, stay right there with it. Just lean heavily into that one pitch.
Yeah, I work with Kevin Gosman. That's probably a good example of he's kept trying to tie a slider, and he still throws it sometimes, but he kept trying to tie a third pitch in. Like, okay, what are you going to get out of that? Your fastball is really hard to hit when they know it's coming. Your splitter is hard to hit when they know it's coming. Yeah. So you have to get something out of it. It's not just switching. Now, I will say, though, on the flip side, I'm normally talking guys into throwing another pitch more, and it's often the changeup. Really? Often to the same handed. There's still that taboo of you throw your changeup to the same handed hitter, you shouldn't do that as much, and a lot of guys should.
Interesting.
I work with Giolito, who really turned it around. Like, oh, I can throw my changeup to righties, and it's really good.
Really, 'cause I was thinking more along the lines of like, obviously the sweepers come into fashion and the bigger horizontal movement. So you reckon the changeup still has some gets some love here?
Yeah, we focus a lot on horizontal difference, and the sweeper was sexy and all that stuff. But man, as a pitcher, like the difference in an effectively delivered pitch that's 10 miles an hour slower from the same slot is just really tough to hit squarely.
For sure.
I know Logan Webb, when I first started working with him, he's looking at his changeup maps going, I don't know if these are right, dude, because you have a lot of blue for me on my changeups to righties. I'm like, I swear.
Wow.
Like I don't make the map. I don't draw the maps. This is math. And it's like, and now he throws his changeup all the time, and the guy's going to win some more, some Cy Young awards throwing a changeup that drops and it's tough to hit.
You know what's funny, man? The left-on-left changeup. I remember, I really wanted to throw it. For some reason, sometimes I had a tough time going fastball down and into lefties. I was like, oh man, the changeup. I was really comfortable throwing that pitch down and in. David DeJesus took me deep on a changeup, left-on-left changeup, and I remember coming in and had a pitch and catch say, hey, no left-on-left changeups. That's like taboo. But I was like, hold on a minute. It just feels I'm way more, as you say, convicted throwing that pitch. But that was taboo. And again, we didn't have Codify Baseball to hit up and outsource our heat map either back in the day. But that was that thing. It's like, oh, you don't throw, left-on-left changeups. It's just a bad idea. But I'm like, man, I've gotten some really bad contact or swings and misses on that pitch.
And you should. You think about when you would throw a changeup up to a righty, and the path that pitch took and the path their bat took. It's in their bat path for a long time.
Yeah.
But what does a lefty have to do to hit a left-handed changeup? And DeJesus might golf one out once in a while. That's fine. It's a tough pitch to square up. But we remember the bad stuff as pitchers, and it's hard to get that stuff out of your head.
For sure. Well, hey, listen, this has been awesome. I appreciate you diving into what the Mariners have been doing, trending up in the AL West, that is for sure. But, hey, Michael Fisher, if you're not following at Codify Baseball, like I said, you are missing out. And let's not forget, too, there's plenty of people out there who can run some numbers, but you don't have someone who's actually working with pitchers, which is even more important. So, Michael, I really appreciate it, man. I hope we can do this again.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.